Hey guys, LevelCap here, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Gaming, the new show where we cover all things FPS. Info about the next major patch for Battlefield 1 has started trickling out of DICE on the Battlefield forums, Twitter, and Reddit. Most of the info has come from replies to players asking about specific bugs. From the responses, we've learned that the next major patch deploys with They Shall Not Pass on the 14th and will include a number of bug fixes, namely the Revive bug, kill trades, a grenade bug, and invisible soldiers. Other issues like incorrect scrap amounts and environmental fire damage values will also be addressed. DICE has also been asking for feedback on specific issues on the Battlefield 1 CTE subreddit, specifically things like grenades, and that post is part of a larger effort by DICE called the Battlefield Roots Initiative to get player feedback on specific issues. They mentioned other areas of concern for future threads like gas grenades working through walls and squad balance. So DICE is clearly paying attention to the community and a variety of issues. I'll leave a link in the description to the relevant thread if you'd like to leave some feedback of your own. Hot on the heels of Mass Effect Andromeda's official launch trailer, first impressions of the upcoming sci-fi shooters multiplayer are making their way out of PAX East. Attendees of the Gaming Expo got some brief hands-on time with the game, and so far it sounds pretty good. Polygon's review makes it sound very fast-paced, kind of like Titanfall 2, but without the crazy wall running and Titans. Mass Effect's multiplayer has been mainly a co-op horde mode where you fight through waves of AI enemies. Andromeda's multiplayer, however, is being touted as a more integral part of the main story experience, but they haven't really said how yet. The PAX demo didn't show off any story mode integration, so we're still in the dark about that specific element. The game launches on the 21st though, so we'll find out soon. One thing we do know for sure is all the DLC maps for Andromeda's multiplayer will be free. As for the PC port of Andromeda, BioWare released their recommended hardware specs this week. A GTX 1060 video card, Intel Core i7 4790 CPU, and 16GB of RAM should be enough to run the game smoothly on the high preset of 30 FPS and 1080p. And although 30 FPS may sound a little disappointing, Nvidia says good enough hardware will run the game at a solid 60 FPS even at a 4K resolution. But by good enough, they could mean their top-of-the-line GPUs like the $700 GTX 1080 Ti, so it might not be a realistic target for your average gamer. Big changes are coming to Overwatch this year, and for once I'm not talking about hero balance. Blizzard recently announced the creation of an Overwatch esports league. Part of this league is team franchise slots. Investors can buy slots for esports teams to compete in Blizzard's league events. Once a team buys a slot, they have a permanent place in the league, meaning they will always be able to compete in any event they attend. Now, with slots ranging in price from $2 to $5 million and up to $15 million for big city teams, a shadow of a doubt has been cast over the whole endeavor. Overwatch is certainly a popular game based on the sheer magnitude of its player base, but its success as an esport title still doesn't measure up to games like CSGO or League of Legends, at least where viewership is concerned. Blizzard themselves are still tweaking Overwatch in big ways to make it a more balanced and competitive game, so really there's no telling what Overwatch will become as an esports game. Esports on a whole is growing insanely fast and is already a multi-billion-dollar empire of sponsorships, broadcast rights, brands, and even stars. There's plenty of room for growth, but there's also a ton of competition for viewership from the established esports titles. That said, sports investors aren't even batting an eye at the buy-in prices Blizzard is asking for. The Dallas Cowboys Senior Vice President of Brand Marketing has been quoted as saying if they could buy a team for $5 million or whatever, but get a $7 million in sponsorship deals over the next couple of years, it becomes a no-brainer. Aside from esports stuff, Blizzard plans to crack down on players abusing custom games for XP with a couple of changes on how to make custom games work. They now have an AFK timer so players can't just join a match and get free XP for doing nothing. If players continue abusing the custom games, bans might start rolling out for big-time offenders. Old school arena fans will be happy to hear that the closed beta signups for the upcoming Quake Champions are now live. Players can sign up via the game's official website, and I'll leave a link in the description. There hasn't been a new Quake game since 2007's Quake Wars. Since then, most of the big arena shooters like Unreal Tournament and Half-Life Deathmatch basically disappeared from the gaming scene. A new Unreal game, though, is currently in the works and has a playable pre-alpha open to all players with the Epic's game launcher installed. 2016's Doom sought to resurrect the genre, but many players found it to be too generic and poorly balanced to take it seriously. I'll be excited to see if Quake Champions can finally bring back the old school arena shooter genre to its former glory. Another arena shooter style game, Lawbreakers, is also getting a closed beta this month. Since the closed alpha last year, a lot of new content has been added to the game, like new classes and weapons. I did a review of the alpha, so if you want to hear my thoughts on how the game was back then, check the description for a link to that video. Since Ghost Recon Wildlands launched earlier this week, players have encountered a number of bugs. Ubisoft has published a list of all the known bugs and issues they plan to address, with one patch already deployed to fix some of them. General performance of Wildlands has varied wildly from player to player. Some people have no problem getting the game to run stable at 60 FPS, with others barely managing to get 40 FPS on comparable hardware. Nvidia did, however, drop some brand new drivers, so if you're using an Nvidia card, you might want to look into those ones as they are designed specifically to improve the performance of Ghost Recon Wildlands. In our final bit of AAA news, the upcoming open-world melee brawler Middleearth Shadow of War had a 16-minute gameplay trailer released this weekend. Boy, does it look good. The sequel to Shadow of Mordor features a greatly expanded open world to explore, as well as a completely overhauled Nemesis system. Basically, the world has a very dynamic system that changes based on your personal actions. I think anyone who's a Tolkien fan or even a melee brawler fan should probably find this next title pretty appealing. The indie World War II shooter Battalion 1944 had a hugely successful Kickstarter campaign last year that beat its funding goal 3 times over. This week they announced that Square Enix will be publishing the title when it's released this summer. The developers worked with Square Enix on their previous title, The Turing Test, a sci-fi Portal-like puzzle game. As part of the announcement, the devs promised a new gameplay trailer soon and showed off a few screen grabs of the game. A closed alpha of the game will be launching soon, but will be exclusively available to the Kickstarter backers. Day of Infamy, the World War II shooter from the devs of Insurgency, is leaving early access on the 23rd. The game originally launched as a mod for Insurgency, but was quickly spun off into a standalone title. Players familiar with Insurgency will feel right at home in Day of Infamy. Activision is in hot water with fans over the announcement of a paid DLC pack for Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. The DLC is a remastered version of COD 4's original and only DLC, the Variety Map Pack. The remastered version sports the same name but not the same price. Priced at $14.99, this version is actually $5 more than the original. Modern Warfare Remastered launched as part of the $80 bundle for Infinite Warfare last year and hasn't been made available as a standalone title. It also initially shipped with 10 maps. 6 more were added for free after release. The Variety Map Pack is seen by players as kind of a slap in their face because most remasters include all the content available from the original game. Personally, I can see why people are upset. The game has microtransactions, is exclusive to an expensive bundle, and is just an upgraded version of a classic title. Also, charging more for a remastered map pack than the original map pack doesn't make a lot of sense. The design work was already done for Activision, so technically it should have been a lot cheaper to produce that map pack this time around. The Division is also getting a second year of DLC content. 2 expansions are planned for the title and will be free to all players. The first expansion will launch sometime in July or August. The second expansion is planned for a release towards the end of the year. No specifics regarding the expansions has been released aside from the second one being a bit of a meatier story-based expansion. Considering the previous 2 expansions of The Division were actually pretty decent and brought a lot of good changes to the game, it'll be interesting to see what Ubisoft has planned. There's still a way to go for The Division to really live up to the potential, so there's no telling what the new expansions will bring to the table. I'm personally excited to see if Ubisoft can breathe fresh life into this game, and the fact that the DLC is going to be free is great news for anyone who bought the title. The Nintendo Switch has apparently outpaced the original Wii's first week sales. In the US and Canada, that means it had to sell more than 600,000 units. Early rumors have the Switch selling as many as 300,000 units sold in Japan alone. Considering Zelda Breath of the Wild is Nintendo's best-selling launch title ever, it wouldn't shock me if the Switch pulled in some big numbers this year. It's already their fastest-selling console in Europe. This is all despite a variety of issues being reported about the hardware. The most notable issues being the dock scratching the console's screen and hardware failures that cause the Switch to sound like it's opening the gates of 8-bit hell. PlayStation 4 owners have gotten an update to firmware version 4.5 that adds boost mode to the PS4 Pro and external hard drive support for all versions of the console. The PS4 boost mode runs the original PlayStation 4 titles that haven't been patched with Pro support at a more stable frame rate for games locked to 60 or 30 FPS and higher FPS overall for games that support variable frame rates. Boost mode may also shorten load times for some titles. Anyway, that does wrap it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. Many things to look forward to, and we'll keep you updated next week. As always, we'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.